The British officer who fought World War II with a sword, bow, and bagpipes. December 27, 1941. A landing craft in a Norwegian fjord heading for the island of Maløy. 6:30 in the morning. The ramp was about to drop. 105 British commandos crouched in the boat, rifles ready, faces blackened, hearts pounding. The German garrison on the island had 4 shore battery guns, anti-aircraft positions, and enough men to put up a serious fight. Shells from HMS Kenya were already pounding the shore. The smoke from Hampton bombers drifted across the water. And standing in the bow of the landing craft, upright, fully exposed, playing the bagpipes, was Major Jack Churchill. He was playing March of the Cameron Men, a Scottish war tune, at full volume, on a set of Highland bagpipes, while heading directly toward a German-held island, in the middle of a naval bombardment. The men behind him had seen a lot of things in this war. They had not seen this. The ramp dropped. Churchill finished the tune, set down the bagpipes, pulled a grenade from his belt, threw it, then drew his Scottish broadsword, a basket-hilted clay bag, and charged up the beach screaming. 105 commandos followed him. They overran the island garrison in less than 10 minutes, captured the German commander, took 15 prisoners, destroyed the shore batteries, seized the herring oil factory. Churchill was awarded the Military Cross. He was 35 years old. He would spend the next 3 years fighting across Europe with a sword, a longbow, and a set of bagpipes. He would capture 42 German soldiers single-handedly. He would be captured himself and escape from a concentration camp twice. And when the war in Europe ended, he would say the most Mad Jack thing anyone has ever said about the end of a world war. If it wasn't for those damn Yanks, we could have kept the war going another 10 years. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe. We tell the World War II stories about the men who fought differently, thought differently, and refused to be ordinary. John Malcolm Thorpe Fleming Churchill was born on September 16, 1906, in Colombo, British Ceylon. His father, Alec Fleming Churchill, was a district engineer in the colonial service. The family moved to Hong Kong in 1910, then back to England. Military family, military expectations, military path. Churchill entered the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst, graduated in 1926, commissioned into the Manchester Regiment, sent to Burma. In Burma, he did 2 things that defined his character. He learned to play the bagpipes, and he rode a motorcycle across India, from his posting to Calcutta, mostly along railroad tracks because there were no roads, at one point colliding with a water buffalo that refused to move. He served in the Burma Rebellion of 1930. Then he got bored with the army and left. For the next several years, he lived the kind of life that seems invented. He worked as a newspaper editor in Nairobi. He became a male model. He appeared in 2 films, playing an archer in The Thief of Baghdad and a bagpiper in A Yank at Oxford. He competed in the military piping competition in 1938 and beat out the Scottish entrants, which caused quite a stir. In 1939, he represented Great Britain at the World Archery Championships in Oslo, Norway. Then Germany invaded Poland. Churchill immediately resumed his commission with the Manchester Regiment and was sent to France with the British Expeditionary Force. He arrived carrying a longbow, a quiver of arrows, and a Scottish broadsword. He had registered the sword as essential equipment. When asked by a superior officer why he carried a sword into battle, his answer became the most quoted line of his career. "Any officer who goes into action without his sword is improperly dressed." In May 1940, during the retreat toward Dunkirk, Churchill and his unit were involved in an ambush near a village called L'Épinette. German soldiers were advancing down a road. Churchill was hidden in position. When the first German came into view, Churchill raised his longbow and fired. The arrow struck the man and killed him. It was the last confirmed longbow kill in modern warfare. Churchill fought at Dunkirk with his sword and bow. He survived the evacuation. Back in England, he volunteered for the newly formed Commandos, the elite special forces unit that specialized in raids behind enemy lines. The Commandos were looking for aggressive, unconventional men who could think independently and fight without waiting for orders. Churchill was exactly what they wanted. The Vogzo raid on December 27, 1941, was his first major commando operation. Operation Archery, a combined forces assault on the German garrison at Vogzo and Malloy, Norway. The target was German fish oil production facilities and the glycerin factory used in explosives manufacturing. Churchill led 105 men against Malloy Island. He played his bagpipes from the landing craft. He threw the first grenade. He led the charge with his sword. The island fell in minutes. After securing Malloy, he was called to reinforce the main assault on Vogzo town, where fighting had grown heavier than expected. Sword in hand, he led his men across to the mainland and into street fighting. The commandos cleared Vogzo house by house. By the end of the day, they had taken 100 German prisoners and destroyed the oil factories, the fish processing plants, and everything of military value. Churchill was awarded the Military Cross. He was just getting started. July 1943, Sicily. Churchill was now commanding officer of No. 2 Commando. He led them ashore at Catania with his broadsword on his belt, his longbow around his neck, and his bagpipes under his arm. He was ordered to capture a German observation post outside the town of Molina, controlling a pass that led to the Salerno beachhead. The post was defended. The approach was exposed. Churchill took one corporal, just one man with him. They infiltrated the town at night, moving from shadow to shadow. Churchill with his sword drawn, the corporal behind him. They reached the observation post. Churchill approached the first German sentry. In the darkness, with a broadsword in his hand, he ordered the man to surrender. The German, unable to process what he was seeing, complied. They moved from position to position, post to post. Churchill would appear out of the darkness with his sword and whisper, "Surrender," in German. The Germans, confronted with what appeared to be a medieval warrior materializing from the night, gave up. One after another. 42 German soldiers, captured by 2 men, one of them armed with a sword. Churchill was recommended for the Victoria Cross, the highest British military decoration. He received the Distinguished Service Order instead, twice. In 1944, he was sent to Yugoslavia, the Adriatic, supporting Tito's partisans from the island of Vis. He organized a raiding force of 1,500 men, a mix of British commandos and Yugoslav partisans, for an assault on the German-held island of Brac. The landing went wrong. The partisans delayed. The Germans were stronger than expected. Churchill rallied the remaining commandos with his bagpipes. He was playing, quote, "one," when a German mortar round landed nearby. The explosion knocked him unconscious. When he came to, most of his commando unit had been killed or captured. Churchill himself was taken prisoner. The Germans sent him to Sachsenhausen concentration camp. They believed he was related to Winston Churchill. He wasn't, different family entirely. But the name meant something to the Germans, and they treated him as a high-value prisoner. Churchill escaped, crawled through a drainage tunnel under the wire, made it several miles before being recaptured. They transferred him to a POW camp in Niederdorf in the Austrian Tyrol. He escaped again. This time, he walked 150 miles through the Alps, alone, on foot, through territory that was still technically enemy-held, though the war was collapsing around him. He reached American lines in Italy. He was free. The war in Europe ended shortly after. Churchill, characteristically, was not pleased. He had been preparing to transfer to the Pacific Theater. He wanted to fight the Japanese. He was training for it, planning for it, ready for it. Then the Americans dropped the atomic bombs. Japan surrendered. The war was over. Churchill's reaction was recorded and has been repeated ever since. If it wasn't for those damn Yanks, we could have kept the war going another 10 years. He wasn't joking. Or rather, he was joking, but he also meant it. War was where Jack Churchill made sense, where the sword and the bow and the bagpipes weren't eccentricities but assets, where his absolute refusal to behave like a normal human being was not a problem, but a weapon. After the war, Churchill served in Palestine during the 1948 conflict. He helped evacuate 700 Jewish doctors and patients from Hadassah Hospital on Mount Scopus, personally driving his jeep through ambush positions. He later became an instructor at a land-air warfare school in Australia. And he took up surfing. He became one of the first people in Britain to surf, riding waves on the River Severn. He was in his 50s. He also developed a habit of throwing his briefcase out of the window of his commuter train as it passed his house. He would then walk home from the station, pick up the briefcase from his garden, and go inside. When asked why, he explained that it saved him from having to carry it from the station. Jack Churchill died on March 8, 1996. He was 89 years old. He had fought in the Second World War with weapons from the 14th century. He had played the bagpipes while under fire. He had captured 42 men with a sword. He had escaped from a concentration camp twice. He had walked 150 miles through the Alps. He had surfed in Britain before surfing was a thing. And he had thrown his briefcase out of a train window every day for years because it was more efficient. He was asked once, near the end of his life, whether he had any regrets about the war, about the sword, about the bagpipes, about being the most eccentric officer in the British Army. His answer was brief, characteristically British, characteristically Mad Jack. I had a wonderful war. 4 words, no elaboration, no explanation. Just a man who had found the thing he was made for and had done it with absolute commitment and zero apology. The sword is in a museum now. The bagpipes are silent. The longbow hasn't been drawn in 80 years. But somewhere, in the stories soldiers tell each other, in the legends that get passed from generation to generation, there's a man standing in the bow of a landing craft, playing the pipes, heading for a German-held island, grinning. Mad Jack Churchill, the man who brought a sword to a gunfight and won. If you were given the choice, would you have followed him into battle? Would you have trusted the man with the bagpipes and the broadsword? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more stories about the men who fought differently and refused to be ordinary,